I first met Shridhar, I'm going to say 1997, when they had just opened Sony Music's office in Bombay, and he was standing outside the door like an excited kid, because he was. but joining us, I think, live from New York today, Shridhar Subramaniam, the President of Corporate Strategy and Marketing Development for Asia and the Middle East, longtime friend of Music Matters. Shridhar, I believe you're in New York. Are you in New York at the moment? But what is your role? What do you do for Sony Music, and what do your family think you do for a living?
Okay. Good to see you, Jasper. You're looking good as always. And you're right, you haven't aged since 97. All right, so a couple of things. I am based in New York now, came here 1 month before the pandemic. So my version of working for Sony in New York and living in New York is quite unique. But the intent of moving here was essentially, Asia, as we all know and we've heard over the years, the time is clearly up here. And for Sony to essentially try and grow the business in Asia, everybody felt that it is important that at the corporate office, head office level, that there's a better appreciation of all the complexities of Asia, and essentially help us, understand and move in that market a lot faster than we've been traditionally moving. So it's been an ambitious plan. And that really is what I do. What my family thinks, of course, is I'm here to have a great time and drink all the bars dry. But that's a different story.
And I know you're in New York, but obviously your area is Asia and the Middle East. What is your perspective on Asia? Okay,
all right. So that's a big question. I think obviously, the fact that the market has been growing at 30% plus over each of these last 3 years, the market's doubled in size. So, economically, it's becoming now obviously a substantial part of almost every company, every artist's revenues, and it's at a unique place. There are essentially 3 drivers for growth, I think, just as we all know. The first is really there's just been an explosion of, I think, the creativity and the creations that are happening, both in terms of music, social media, short form video, gaming, in any sphere. And if you look at some of the numbers that John spoke of at Roblox, there's a huge kind of growth trajectory that's coming on in terms of, I think, both the creation side as well as on the consumption side. But also what is probably most exciting is that some of the more innovative platforms and the adoption that is happening out of Asia is probably one of the fastest, whether we're seeing it in live streaming or the interest around, virtual worlds, all of these other areas. So we expect the market to continue to grow at this pace, probably for another 3 to 5 years. And that'll make us, essentially we will start probably having maybe 3 or if not 4 markets featuring in the top 10 pretty soon. And I think that really is what I see as economic future for Asia.
So exciting times. Now we just talked about the metaverse. We're going to be talking about things like NFTs and stuff, but what kind of innovation are you seeing coming out of this part of the world?
Okay, so the good part about Asia is typically, we go back and see, the market's really been underinvested in because of obviously the privacy issues, the access issues, and the ability to pay issues. But I think we're an interesting moment right now where we're seeing all 3 engines of growth pretty much kind of growing at an exponential level. The first of which is subscription growth, which everybody talks about, paid subscription, whether it's coming out of China or the rest of Asia, that's growing healthy at 20-25% a year. The second thing that we're seeing, which I think the pandemic has accelerated a lot more, has been really the drive to advertising revenues and the ARPUs that are being generated from the advertising side of the business. We're seeing a huge pickup across all the social media platforms that we're seeing. The third engine that we're going to probably see is exactly what you mentioned, which is from some of the new areas, whether it's, digital merchandising, whether it's really effectively live streaming, or whether it's NFTs. And we're going to see all these 3 engines pretty much, fuel the Asian growth across all markets. It's no longer just the developed or the more prosperous markets like, say, China or Korea, but we're starting to see that now in Southeast Asia, India, and almost every other market which is large and populous.
There has been a lot of innovation coming out of Asia. K-pop is the obvious here, but is this, outside of K-pop, is this the time for Asian artists?
Here I'll probably go, yes, it is. And I think it's an exciting time because I think a couple of things. One, as I said, there's this creativity that is kind of, unimaginably, explosive across all markets with people, really being not just music artists, but essentially being brands, personalities, and being very well versed in lots of other aspects that they need. The second thing is, I think, probably to a point, to pick up on what Dowda said earlier, which is that the idea that essentially we're going to get global brands coming from Asia, they may or may not be as distinctively Asian as we expect them to be in the conventional sense that they're going to, they'll dress Asian, sound Asian, etc. They will essentially form a part of the global fabric, and therefore, in that sense, that's how they will effectively permeate the global culture and influence that. And we've seen that. We've seen that with, say, 88 Rising as a label and some of these other formats that have gone on to actually culturally impact certain communities at a global level. And yes, so I believe it is a time for Asian artists, but more importantly, I think than Asian cultural expression to actually have its weight in the larger global conversation and the larger global impact.
So Asia's time is now.
For sure.
What's exciting for you, for Sony Music right now, in that context of Asia?
Okay, so I think a couple of things here, I think, Jasper. The first of which is scale, right? I think right now we're reaching, almost every platform, if you look at now, we have north of 1 billion users, any scale platform, right? North of 1 billion users in this. And what it's now starting to do is really, and I think as we all know, the Asian culture is kind of hugely fragmented, deep, and there are certain pockets that traditionally don't make the impact that you'd expect them to. Probably the last time something like this happened was in the time of ringback tones, and when that was such a novelty, you had all these genres coming from, whether they were kind of dangduk music in Indonesia or some of the other stuff coming from Thailand, or even India for that matter. What is not going to happen is now because the streaming services and some of these platforms are at scale, we're seeing a huge surfacing of all of the regional impact and the regional genres that we've seen. And it's a huge challenge to essentially, address this at scale and address this in ways that demand that every record company can actually help our artists use all these platforms, not just from a marketing perspective, but also from a monetization perspective. And in Asia, as again, most labels are essentially also in the management business. So we tend to have a lot more rights around the stuff, around the artists and the ability to work with them on more things. And it gives us really a much deeper view into how we work with some of the emerging platforms, whether it's live, NFTs, or even if it's, on the gaming platforms, etc. And, there's just so many avenues opening up. So, yes, so that, to me, the challenge is really to, at the scale that Asia offers, how do we organize ourselves to be able to address that well?
We've got a lot of artists in the room with us today. By the way, Sony have been very, very supportive of Music Matters this year. One of our sponsors, and one of the requests was to make sure that they were behind getting artists in the room. So Shridhar, thank you so much for that. What advice could you give if I'm an artist in Asia and I want to get seen and heard in other parts of the world? What advice could you give?
Okay, many things. I think, it's probably the greatest time to be an artist, if I were to say that. I think you heard that from the three early panelists. I think both from, your creator tools, I think their ability to have access to platforms where you can actually self-promote, and obviously platforms where you can even monetize. But I think the key thing that one should never forget, and I think that's probably the role of labels and I think managers and different, advisory, whatever you want to call them, is, as always, it is an artist's creative expression, but it needs to be guided, manifested, and you need to have a creative partner in the journey that'll help people understand what the true potential of your creativity is. The second thing that comes along with creativity is obviously now with all this, multiplicity of platforms, there's just an exponential amount of data and information that an average creative person gets inundated with. And it's not easy to make sense of that. And that's probably where, again, some labels or managers who are good at, who have tech platforms, can actually help with that. That's the second, I think, advice that you need to have, that you need to surround yourself with people who can help make sense of some of the numbers that are being thrown at you. And the fourth, of course, is really quite simply, some sort of a marketing savvy, whether it's a digital marketing savvy and being able to truly understand how to build, engage, and monetize fans in a systematic and a scalable manner. And I think my advice is obviously to find these partners as you evolve, and there's a creative process for as your artist growth evolves. Some of it comes in the form of labels, some of it comes in the form of managers, some of it just comes in the form of being surrounded by great people around you.
And how would you recommend that music companies or artists can expand their revenue streams? Certainly when we're not allowed live on stage.
Correct. I think one, of course, the streaming is one platform that we're seeing as we spoke of, and the revenues that are coming through, and we can argue whether it's enough, how much of it is being shared, etc. But I think the second thing that we from an artist point of view is that we feel that there is now really real-time revenues that people are now getting access to, whether it's real-time royalties or whether it's real-time information, and almost every platform pretty much pays you real-time. It's not like the old days where you needed to kind of, there's a whole bunch of lagged money that would come through. So we've seen that whole trend really help fund and bridge the funding that artists may need over their career. And from our point of view, we feel that, as I said, the most important thing that we'd like to offer our artists is being a creative platform to them, and to help essentially work with them and to help build their fans and express themselves creatively against this whole opportunity that is out there.
I guess same question that I asked Meng earlier. Are you seeing what common rookie errors are you seeing artists making?
The rookie errors that I think most artists make is that, they try to be successful across all platforms at the same time. And that's not easy to do, unless you're truly, some artists are great at, visual artists and who can create great visual brands. Some are just great musicians, some are great performers. And it's a journey that you need to find what your route is and try and layer yourself as you go along. And I think what the technology platforms help you with is to be able to actually have much more avenues of expression, and not just be limited to I'm just great on a live stage, but I can't really do something on a virtual platform. This allows you to actually find your pathway, but you need to find one. I think that's some of the mistake that most people play or something new. I need to do something and be very successful at that. Like if you look at Adele right now, right? We're seeing her dependence on putting an album out, and the fact that it's constructed as an album, and the fact that there's still a dependence on physical product and an album experience is like an artist staying true to her vision of her creative expression. And I think that is something that I think most people have to learn. It comes with some amount of maturity and some guidance, but that's probably some of the mistakes that most people make.
Do we have any questions from the floor for Shridhar? We have one of the nicest people in the music business worldwide, live from New York. Any questions? Where are my two regulars? Do we have another? We do. Oh, he's going 3-1 up. Just wait 1 second, please, because once again, the microphone's at the back of the room. He hasn't learned.
Thank you. Hi, Shridhar. My name's Jamie. Thank you for sharing the insights, and I'm interested in how music producers, in particular, can gain access to the Asian market. Are there any key sage pieces of wisdom that you would share if I was a brand new music producer looking to break into the Asian market? How do I connect with the industry? Do I connect directly with the labels? Do I find my own artist and lead with a lead artist? What advice would you offer me if I was a budding music producer?
Hi, Jamie. Great question. I think you're right. It's Asia. First of all, I think we've got to look at Asia probably not in one single lens. I think different markets have different kinds of ecosystems around them. But there are a couple of common themes across each one of them. So I think if you look at some markets, that they seem to be kind of almost like audio-visual dependent, in the sense that if you look at, there's a whole TV drama, movie production, there's a whole world of that actually almost leads the music business. Some of it is in China, some of it's in India. So there is actually a soundtrack-based, world that can also look at, not just necessarily a conventional record label or a publishing company. So in Asia, that's truly one sort of an opportunity. The second, of course, is we are starting to see, I think it depends what genre of music you're looking at, of course, but I think if you're looking at the explosion of, say, hip hop that's beginning to happen pretty much across most markets, that's a slightly, relatively easier beat-driven kind of, driven production area that one can look at and one tends to forget. And the third, of course, is quite simply, I think what you'll quickly see is that the publishing business is maturing quite quickly, and I think they could be also look at a way to work through some of them to try and break into the conventional record companies.
Thank you, thank you.
Nice question. Any more time for one more question? Okay, Shridhar, so I'm going to wrap it up on this final question, which is, what is really exciting for you, for Sony Music? What's really exciting for you right now?
I think right now, I think, especially from an Asian context, I think, Jasper, really, I think the speed at which things will move, I think both on the NFT side and possibly on the digital goods, digital merchandise, and what's going to happen in that world, I think it's going to take us all by surprise. I think we all talk about how quickly TikTok became what it became, how quickly they reached 1 billion users. I think the next milestone that's going to surprise us all is how quickly we're going to find a billion people on a metaverse somewhere transacting in digital goods and in avatars. And I think that's what's really exciting. And I think earlier to John's point, there are multiple such worlds being built, some very geography specific, language specific, genre specific. And it really is going to be up to us as a company to try and truly engage, understand, and be successful in that world.
Okay, so we're out of time, unfortunately, but what a great session. You're talking about Asia's time is now. You're talking about finding partners. You're talking about don't be all things to all people on every digital network. Clearly, music matters. Oh, by the way, if you want to meet people in the industry and stuff, come to Music Matters. You talked about digital matters, and then finally, as is the hot topic right now, you talked about the metaverse and what opportunities that's offering for artists. I know we're running a little bit late, so Shridhar, thank you for staying up late to be with us tonight, and hopefully we'll see you back in Singapore next year. Shridhar Subramaniam.
Thanks, Jasper. Thanks, everybody.